Hey everyone, welcome back to the Queen's Home Team, and this segment is Q&A with QHT. And I'm your host, Abigail Herrera, alongside of my husband, George Herrera, and we're here to answer one question. Now, these questions come from all different areas, such as our website, people, Reddit channels, people call us, we have conversations, so they come in all different areas and forms, and so we figured this would be a nice segment so that way we can answer some of these questions of what inquiring minds want to know. Are you ready, George?
I'm ready.
This is a question for you.
This is for me, okay.
But
I was born ready.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay, so this is the question, George.
Okay.
Okay. Accepted our offer in writing, question mark.
Okay.
But, ... Okay, this is a home buyer question.
Oh, accepted offer in writing, but okay.
Okay. We put an offer in on a home for lower than asking.
Okay.
Seller's realtor asked if it's our highest and best. Decided to go up $20,000 on our offer. Submitted. The offer submitted.
Okay.
Our realtor heard back a few minutes later via text saying we got the house with our updated offer after speaking to the seller.
Nice. Okay.
Few minutes later, they called our realtor back saying, quote unquote, actually no, you can have, quote unquote, actually no, you can have two for XXX price instead. So basically got a message back a few minutes later from seller's realtor to the buyer's realtor.
Not accepted.
Said, actually, it's not accepted. You can have the house for this.
Okay.
Now,
psych out. Okay.
Verbal agreements can be binding, but text are also binding. Does this apply to real estate? I'm annoyed by the whole exchange. That realtor sucked, but if technically we did get the house, should we move forward legally in some way?
Okay. That's the question here?
Yeah, there's a wrap up.
Okay.
I won't mention what happens here.
Okay.
But what are your thoughts?
So, I mean, here in Queens, this situation is very common. So that's the first thing.
Common.
If you're new to the channel or not actively in the market in Queens, this whole scenario here is very common.
Yes, and it's something we have to juggle with every day because of laws, the laws that regulate.
So in New York State, what you need to understand in New York State, an accepted offer is not considered fully accepted until contracts are signed by both parties. That means a contract of sale signed by the seller, signed by the buyer. That's when it's legally binding.
And the contracts are drawn up by whom?
The attorneys.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's no verbal agreement being enforceable. Even if you make an offer on an offer form and it's signed by the buyer and signed by the seller, it's not an actual contract of sale.
Correct.
So even that is not legally binding. So that's the important thing to know. Queens, New York City, New York State, no offer considered fully accepted until contracts are signed. You know, as a consumer, as a buyer, is it annoying? I understand why the buyer would be annoyed because you got an accepted offer, all of a sudden you lose it. And that happens all the time here, mainly whenever we have low inventory levels or neighborhoods where there's low inventory because you have multiple buyers competing. So a seller might accept an offer, and then as they accept an offer, you know, the buyer still has to do inspection. You still have to get attorneys involved. It can be a 2 or 3 week time period from accepted offer to contract signing. During that time, a buyer might make a higher offer or a better offer, and sometimes the sellers will go for it and you can lose the deal, just like in this situation. But do you have any legal recourse? From our understanding, there is no legal recourse until contract is signed by the sellers and by the buyers. Up until that point, unfortunately, it's more so a verbal acceptance, but it's subject to change. So even if you get an accepted offer, that's why we say you want to move quickly. Time is of the essence. So if you get an accepted offer, schedule your inspection right away, get the ball rolling, get your attorneys involved. You want to move quickly because sometimes the sellers will stick with you. Even if they get a higher offer, sometimes they'll stick with your offer just because they see how proactive you are in making the deal happen. And they know that you're moving expeditiously, right? You're moving quickly to make it happen. So Yeah, unfortunately, this is a very common scenario where buyers can get upset and get annoyed. Was the realtor bad or not? Sometimes the consumers will get upset with us, even though
Delivering the news.
we're just delivers of the news, and we're just following our legal obligation, which
Yes.
is so something else to know for the consumers out there. A listing agent that's representing a seller, every offer that comes in from the moment it's listed until the moment it closes must be presented to the owner. So if a higher offer comes in, a listing agent has a legal responsibility to present that offer. He can't just hold it and say we have an accepted offer and not present that offer.
Yeah.
So we're legally obligated to present it, and that's where things get tricky because we're legally obligated to present it. If it's a really good offer, naturally the owner may consider it, and that's where you get into these situations.
I think one of the easiest ways to look at it is that up until contracts are fully executed, as George mentioned, from acceptable offer, which is verbal acceptance, until inspection, contracts are drawn up, signed by buyer, signed by seller. Until that point, everything is a negotiation.
Yeah.
Because you'll even have an acceptable offer, an inspection takes place, and then a buyer wants to negotiate. Everything is a negotiation until contracts are signed.
That's right.
Nothing is said and done nor binding until contracts are signed. And you want to check this from state to state because real estate sales are handled very differently from state to state. So I've seen often as well where we've had experiences, whether a sell or buy side, where they sold or bought in another state, and they're assuming that it's the same in New York. It's completely different.
It's different.
So just be prepared.
That's a good point, because just like the seller can take a higher offer, a buyer can get an accepted offer, go see another house that they like better, make an offer there, and
rescind their offer.
Yeah, so it's both sides. Neither one is legally obligated to the deal until contracts are signed. One tip I would give for any potential buyers out there: if you do like a house, you make an offer, you get an accepted offer, you're not guaranteed to get this term agreed upon, but you can ask the seller to give you 2 weeks with no showings. So you can ask for, no showings for the next 2 weeks, just so you have enough time to do your due diligence and do the attorney involvement and get the contract signed. Sellers won't always go for that, but it's always worth a shot. If you wanted to, you can ask for that.
Yes.
Yeah.
So here's the edit. After a couple of negotiations, they accepted our offer and we have a signed contract.
Nice.
Off to the races for inspection and appraisal for further negotiations. Here we go. See, they mentioned negotiations 2 times, and that's the fact. The fact of the matter is, up until contracts are fully executed, everything is negotiated.
Yeah.
That's
crazy. That's a happy ending.
What it is.
Many times it's not the happy ending, but I'm glad that's a happy ending.
Yes.
They were able to work it out and get it.
Yes. So congratulations.
Congrats.
All right, interesting question, and it's a good one because it really creates, it's a very high emotional process, not only to buy or sell a property in itself, and there's a lot of the in-betweens that a lot of people don't know what that process is, what realtors have to go through. Oftentimes we're the bad guys, but as George mentioned, we have legal license obligations that we have to abide by when representing clients. Of course, you have to act in good faith. But there are legal obligations that tie us to do what we do, and oftentimes not oftentimes, but at times we can be seen as the bad guys, but we're just doing our duty. We're doing our duty by law.
Yes.
So hopefully, with any situation, realtors can, whomever you're working with as a real estate agent, can explain exactly what that process is in full detail. Make sure they're explaining to you with full detail what's happening along the process. Try to give you expectations 2 steps ahead. So that way, if unforeseen circumstances like this, although it worked out well for the buyer, if unforeseen circumstances occur, it's not a surprise. Okay? So if you have any questions, you're welcome to reach out to us. We have a wonderful team of buyer agents and also seller agents. So if you have any questions, feel free to call us, text us, email us. If you like this video, you like the question, you can also subscribe. We have an excellent array of videos, all kinds of video relating to New York State real estate. So feel free to subscribe, and we're always looking for feedback. Thank you for your time today. Once again, I'm Abigail Herrera. This is my husband and business partner, George Herrera. This is a segment of Q&A with QHT. And thank you. We wish you all the best. Take care.
Take care.